Hi everyone, hope you're well. Chris Cowlin here. Now, before we get into it, I'd just like to inform you about a new website selling quality current and retro Spurs jerseys, okjersey.com. They sell all current and retro Tottenham Hotspur shirts in all sizes. They sell the current fan and player versions, as well as the 80s and 90s retro shirts, including my very favourite, the 1991 FA Cup final shirt. You can order very easily from okjersey.com, and if you use the code Chris, you will receive an 8% discount off your final order. You can also use the QR code on the top left of your screen. And by the way, they also have some training wear here and the 25-26 colour special edition jersey. Hi everyone, hope you're well. This is Chris Cowlin and this is another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. In this edition, we'll be talking about Tottenham's exit from the FA Cup. Tottenham Hotspur 1, Aston Villa 2. We're live on YouTube, live on X and Facebook. Let us know how you are feeling right now as a Spurs fan and what you made of this afternoon's performance. Now, let's get into it. Spurs 1, Aston Villa 2. Buendia put Aston Villa up 1-0 up after 22 minutes. Rodgers, just before the half-time break, made it 2-0. And then Odegaard scoring Tottenham's only goal of the game in the 54th minute. Now, let's go through some of the match facts and stats. Tottenham Hotspur with 39.7% of the ball to Aston Villa's 60.3%. Spurs had 13 shots to Aston Villa's 17. Shots on target, Spurs 5, Aston Villa 8. Touches inside the opposition box, Spurs 32, Aston Villa also 32. Goalkeeper saves, Spurs 5, Aston Villa 4. Aerial duels 1, Spurs 15, Aston Villa 4. Fouls committed, Spurs 17, Aston Villa 10. And corners, Spurs had 4, Aston Villa had 7. Now, as per usual, I've got 3 guests with me to talk about today's defeat. We've got Dustin with us all the way from Singapore. Dustin, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
All good, thank you, Dustin. Thanks for joining us. We've got Orcun all the way from Turkey. Orcun, how are you?
Yeah, another disappointing match. But overall good, mate.
And we've also got Matt with us all the way from New Jersey, USA. Matt, how are you?
I'm well, Chris. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I feel pretty drained, and I'll be honest with all of the viewers and listeners. I've asked the guest today if we can do a very short podcast. So, Matt, I'm gonna start the show with you. Give us your thoughts on today's performance, today's defeat.
It was a lot of the same. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, Chris, and talking with everybody. But it's more of the same. It's the same old boring tactics. It seems like we only feel like doing anything after we've gone behind, and usually only that comes from a couple of presses, a couple of players who are kind of seems like they're going off script. They're attacking a little bit more, and it was nice that we saw a little combination, but it's more of the same. It's just more of the same.
Dustin, let's come to you. You'll see by the pictures, if people are watching on YouTube and Facebook, there are a lot of arguments at the end. There were boos at the end again for Thomas Frank and this Spurs team. Of course, boos at half-time as well. Dustin, what did you make of it?
That looks like our best attack of the game. Look, I think that we made a fist of it in the second half, but I mean a big part of why we fell behind by 2 goals in the first half was that all of the chances that we tried to create, it was all winning duels. Our chances didn't come from disrupting Villa or having possession and having an attacking pattern of play. Our chances came from stealing the ball from Villa before they had a chance to attack, and while they're still transitioning from defense to attack and they're out of position, and that's where we created our chances. If you look at every chance we created in the first half, it was not from a plan that we had to pull them out of position, to play our players into space. It was they are not properly attacking yet, they're transitioning. If we press them and we win the ball there, we can have an attacking chance. Now, when you rely on your opponent's mistakes to have an attacking chance, it means that your chance creation depends very much on your opponent's quality. And if your opponent, steps up their quality, which they did in the second half. In the second half, we took control, we scored a goal back. Then Villa brought on a substitution. Villa were a lot more composed. They took back control of their own possession. And then we didn't lay a glove on them after we took Talon or the Bear off. So I think the trend basically has been, it's very much what we've been doing. We rely on winning the ball from our opponents to create chances because we're better at winning the ball back and our opponents being disorganized than our opponents being organized and us figuring out a way to beat them and pull them out of position. So in terms of attacking patterns of play, we did the same thing we always do. We lob long balls to our strikers, we lob long balls to Tel and Richarlison and asked them to work miracles. And Richarlison, tore his hamstring probably trying to do that.
Orcun, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on today's defeat.
Just really simply, first half was awful, most of it, like Dustin just said. We seem to really have no creativity. We were just lumping the balls up, hoping something would come off. And I think Richarlison coming off was a bit of a blessing in disguise because I just didn't see that happening. I think I've said it in previous games. I like seeing, Mwani in the center. I don't know why he doesn't get more opportunities there. I know, Thomas seems to favor Richarlison there, but now Richarlison's obviously got some kind of a hamstring issue, so he's probably going to be out for like 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it is. But obviously, yes, nobody can deny second half we were much, much better. Definitely there was more passion, there was more attack, there was more bite. Certainly Paulinho, in the first half wasn't that great, but yeah, definitely I think in the second half he was one of our players. Xavi was trying his best to get things going. Obviously, Mwani started off the goal, winning the ball back and some neat passing, and a good finish. So I think had we started, it's just this is like the other guys are saying, it's kind of story of our life. We never seem to be able to put in a full 90 minutes. I mean, had we played the full game as we did in majority of the second half, I think, we might have had a chance, but, it's just, poor. In the first half, we let in 2 goals. And, that you already, you've got a mountain to climb. So disappointed, and obviously disappointed to be out of the cup. Yeah, just too little, too late, frustrating. But anyway, I'm sure we'll get into more of it, just I'll keep it simple for now.
Orchie, where do you stand on Thomas Frank as Spurs boss right now?
It is frustrating. I think sort of without necessarily talking about this game, I think as we've seen in the last couple of games, players that didn't seem to be getting a chance now, he's forced to play them and they're not, I think Tel has done well on the left. Again, he hasn't been amazing, but he's certainly been doing better than what some other players have been doing. I know Mwani, we've seen him in very, very limited roles through the middle. I've always said, I don't understand why Richarlison gets so many starts when, I think Mwani's, best position is that position in the center. And I know he has his critics as well, but I just don't believe that Mwani's has had the service that he's had. So essentially what comes to mind is, had he played also like Johnson's and those kind of people, probably, for example, Kudus wouldn't have had the injury that he's had because he's certainly overplayed some players. Like they've had start after start after start, even when they haven't been too good, when maybe he could have rotated the squad a bit more, and he hasn't. And now obviously we've sold Johnson, we've got players out injured, and we're basically down to our bare bones with the injuries and suspensions. Obviously, Romero didn't play today, but I've got to be honest with you, he hasn't been impressing me that much lately anyway. So I think I think he's certainly creating the problems. Like I know I'm frustrated with his, team selections in not just this, this game. He's kind of pretty much he picked the best team that he could, what is available to him. But yeah, he hasn't done himself any favors with the way, you know, with the teams that he's picked in recent weeks and months. But yeah, but I do also kind of feel for him now because, you know, he hasn't got much of a choice. But, you know, one can argue that's basically his own making. You know, so whatever he said at halftime, I don't know if it was him saying it. I know like some people in the chat, in the messages are saying, you know, players probably said F this and kind of did their own thing, not listening to him. I don't quite believe that. So, he, you know, obviously words were had at halftime because second half was much, much better. But why can't we start games like that? Why can't he get the team? And at the end of the day, he's the manager and it comes down to him. Why can't he get that team starting that way every single match and lasting 90 minutes? You know, we haven't seen that kind of performance at all, you know, this season yet, you know, for full 90 minutes. You know, if we do, then I think we would be winning, you know, getting much more, you know, getting much more out of most of the matches that we played.
Matt, can I ask you how you're feeling about boss Thomas Frank and how you're feeling as a Spurs fan right now? Because this season has been hard for a lot of us to follow Tottenham. And, you know, out of another domestic cup competition, Thomas Frank in his press conference said that, you know, we were going to go strong in this game. He wanted to win this game. He wanted to win the tournament. Of course, this is another competition that we are out of. We now only have the Premier League and, of course, the Champions League out of both domestic cups. How are you feeling? How are you finding it following Spurs this season under Thomas Frank?
To be completely honest, I'm becoming more and more apathetic towards it. I kind of don't feel anything like when I watch them, even today. Like, you know, even though I was taking notes throughout the whole match, you know, when I was watching the match the other day and last week, and almost every match that I've watched since about the beginning of December, like I just feel almost numb like to it. I don't really have many feelings when goals go in, when goals, you know, when we concede, when we score goals. And it's like kind of a really sad feeling because, you know, but it's systematic of playing this type of football which kind of grinds out your life. I mean, you know, we've gone through the XG stats and you know, it's clear that things are just not working. It seems like there's no real attacking play. You know, I know Orchie was saying that, you know, why can't we have that same urgency? But, you know, I'm going to go back to what Dustin said. And a lot of people have been saying the same thing. It seems like the only time when we want to attack is when the players go off script and basically say, I can't do this turgid type of horseshoe of death, you know, this slow type of, you know, very turgid type of football, and then they try to create something. And sometimes things do come from that. Tell for the last couple of matches has played very well. He's combined well with Xavi at Bournemouth. Xavi, I thought, was fantastic today. You know, there were a few instances where I wish he would release the ball a little bit earlier, but it's tough because we're seeing little bits. But again, I think it's like everyone thinks, it's because players have had enough of this manager. And based on what you've seen with some of these players, you know, with their posts, and there was the Spence and Van de Ven issue a few weeks back where they ignored him. And it's just, there's so many different missteps that are going on, and there's so many different cracks that are appearing, and we're not getting any type of like foundational movement. We're not, our defense isn't strong. We're not getting a good build out play. It seems like it only comes when we go off script. And that's not why we employ a manager. You don't employ a manager to basically like just be there to look nice and chew gum, because I feel like that's all that Thomas Frank has done. Like he just chews gum and doesn't change anything, or when he does change something, it's at the wrong time. Um, it's very hard to like root for a Spurs side which kind of doesn't exhibit any trait of our traditional Spurs sides of the past. I mean, we support this club not because we're glory hunters, not because we expect like miracles. We support this club because we want to be entertained in the simplest forms. At least give us a chance. And yes, it was a very strong lineup that we put out there. I kind of do agree that it was forced on him, but again, it was forced on him by his own making, because I don't think there was enough rotation earlier in the season. But again, like, it's very hard to be positive about anything that's going on at Spurs right now, with the minor exception of just a little bit of Xavi, Odegaard, Tell, you know, Gray is doing well. You know, I think he's progressing, but overall, it's very bad. And if it comes to this, I want Frank out. Like, it's, I hate to put it that so bluntly, but he just doesn't deserve to be here. He hasn't shown us anything. And at the end of the day, just because your Brentford team scored a lot of goals does not mean you played attacking football. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's one thing if you look at the underlying stats and, you know, when they talked about these 30 candidates over the summer that we were looking at, you know, Thomas Frank was the top of the list. His team scored a lot of goals. That is very true. But they did not play attacking football. And I think that is the thing that some of these stats might gloss over. So we're just losing our minds because we can't be happy seeing this. We're not seeing any type of attacking play, like any type of cohesion. We've seen players run into each other a few times in the first half. Some players ran into each other. They were occupying the same space. It's very frustrating because we're so used to seeing some level of attacking cohesion across the last maybe like 10, 20, 30, 40 years or whatever. But yeah, we're not seeing anything from Frank. So it's extremely frustrating and it's extremely hard to be up for these matches. I really do honestly feel for the people who have paid for a season ticket and have to go there, or people like you, Chris, who have to go there and report on this. Because I mean, the beauty about where I am is I could just turn the TV off. Like, I could just say, nope, not worth my time. And that's kind of how I've been feeling a lot lately. There's been a few matches where I've just been like, nope, doesn't look like anyone's putting in any effort. Doesn't look like the manager has put in any type of game plan. I can't be bothered with this, and I'll go do something else with my time. But yeah, it's tough. It's really not looking up.
Dustin, let's come to you. I know you want to go through some slides on the screen now to talk about tactics.
So earlier when I was talking about how like Frank Ball is essentially we're playing down the wing, right? What is the most familiar thing that you see when Frank attacks? It's a long ball from Porro to Kudus. But now Kudus is injured. So now Porro is there. He's got one passing option. He doesn't have someone that can, you know, trap the ball in midair, muscle off 2-3 people and try to beat 3 men. Kudus has been doing that all season. Why do we think he's injured? He's been working miracles. He's been catching vertical balls that are very difficult to trap. He's got players that are double teaming him, triple teaming him because he's our main creative threat. And Richarlison today got injured doing the same thing because all we do is ping long balls to them, expect them to win those balls against 2 or 3 people that know exactly that's what we're going to do. And that's how they get injured. Now, the other part about this is if we go to the second half, after we scored and then we were trying to create more chances, we continue to go to the wings and Tell is here because Frank Ball likes to play very, very close to the touchline along the flanks because it's a safer place to play. If you lose the ball there, you don't have to worry as much about letting in people down the center. But when you do that, it's very easy to defend against because they just push you outside and you're just cornered there. So you can see in the corner over there are 3 Villa players just pushing him to the line. So most of the time he just goes out for a throw in. And if he wants to come back in, what options does he have? He doesn't have any, right? And then if we look at the goals that we created, let's look at Villa's goal. Villa's goal was a simple 4 passes down the center, right? And that's why I keep banging the drum about how what we need is central ball progression. We have 11 through passes the entire season. We're bottom of the league in central, like through passes. So Villa cuts us through with 4 passes like that. And then when they score the other goal, because they cut us through the center, we're so uncoordinated, completely free on the flank for them to make a cutback. And when we are on the wing and we try to create chances, we just cross the ball in or do a cutback. Villa do a cutback, a back heel to someone that's running in as a box crasher to score the goal. They have variety in the way they attack from wide. Our way of attacking from wide is a deep cross from Porro, and maybe Kudus cuts to the byline and cuts it back. And maybe Odegaard does something on the other flank. but it's not much variety. But you look at the variety that Villa did when they cut through us in this game. So the time that we do go off script is when Odebear creates his goal, and that's from central progression, right? They cut through the center. I got to look through my notes to remember how he scored that goal. But basically, it's Muani like chasing the ball down the center, winning the ball, cutting through the center. There's interplay between Xavi and Odebear, and that's where our chances came from. And once we go back to Frank ball, once we go back to playing from the flanks, we don't create chances anymore. Once Tell and Odebear go off and we don't have those creative wide players that have interplay, that progress the ball, that cut into the center, our chances have dried up. So after 88 minutes when Odebear went off, I didn't see any notable chance we created that had any real threat.
Orcun, let's come to you. This is now 4 defeats in 7 matches, 7 defeats in 13 matches. This isn't good enough, is it?
No, absolutely not, mate. I mean, I again, playing devil's advocate, I think we had something like 10 first teamers out today, but still, at the end of the day, Frank was supposed to be known for his organizational skills and whatever else. And we're just not seeing it. We're not seeing any kind of dynamic. I mean, look, if the performances are there, we are passing the ball well, there's a lot of action, we're having a lot of chances, then I think a lot of the, fans will forgive that maybe, because he's got players out, he's got people to come back. But at least if we saw some kind of dynamic performance, then we can forgive it. But we're not even seeing that. We're just seeing, exactly just as Dustin said. I actually picked up on it. For their first goal, right? We had the defense didn't really, that first goal was completely, Danzo missed it. Porro tried to get a tackle in. He completely missed the player, and they played a really great, 1-2 slip ball, and they scored their first goal. So again, defense left a lot to be desired in that particular situation, but still run up to that goal. We had our 4 defenders, and then right in front of the defense was, they're 2 players that created the chance, and I was thinking exactly what Dustin was saying. I was thinking, where the hell is somebody, playing defensive midfield? Where is the center of midfield? Like, teams seem to cut through us like, hot knife through butter, because we don't really seem to have a strong midfield. And if you look at kind of our, again, peak potches, that was probably our, we absolutely, played through teams, with that kind of, triangular passing that was, that happened. And we're not seeing any of that. Like I was saying, he's just not, it seems to be always the same thing again and again and again. And I know, for example, last year, Ange, used to get a lot of criticism saying a lot of managers, a lot of teams had found out Ange ball, and it was, easy to set up against him. And I think so far, Frank's football has been even more, predictable. And again, as Dustin said, when Kudus was fit, that's all we seemed to do. Every time we kind of had, got the possession back, the ball just always seemed to go, towards the right. And, so we become very, very predictable, and we become very kind of one-dimension team. Whereas, if you look at some of our favorite, teams of the past, again, peak Portuguese, we could attack from the right, we could attack from the left, we could attack through the middle. We had plenty of, different ways of breaking teams down. If it wasn't working down the right, we were going down the left, or we were finding lots of other solutions. But yeah, so far, as I said earlier, Frank is not doing himself any favors at all. I myself really expected more, and I'm myself actually quite shocked at how one-dimensional his football, has been so far. It's like that, cliche saying, what's the definition of madness? You keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And, it just doesn't seem to change things up. And, in the second half, where we were, Xavi Paulinia, have to give him a lot of credit. He was really getting in there, tackling, taking the ball, feeding through Xavi. Xavi was involved in a lot. So I saw a lot of, I saw positives. Again, I'm disappointed, but I did see positives from certain players like Xavi, like Tel, Colomiani, and even Paulinia. And as Dustin said, every time we seem to go through the middle, every time we did some nice passing, we were unpredictable. We were doing much better. But just Frank seems to be just one way, and I don't know. And it does seem to give the impression that the players themselves are kind of playing that kind of way, and the way that Frank seems to set them up is just really negative and very kind of dull in a way. Very predictable. And he's got to change like if he wants to survive in this job. But I think it's getting harder and harder for him, because I don't think he's going to be around for much longer if it continues like this. But again, the board have to take responsibility as well, mate. It's not just Frank's fault, because our squad is just not good enough. Anyway.
Matt, let's come to you. Orcun says there about some positives, with some individual performances, and that second half was a lot better than the first half. Do you see enough positives in these games, particularly recently, very recently? Do you see enough positives in these games that Thomas Frank can improve and get through this very tough spell at the moment?
I wish I could say something positive about that, but yeah, no, I don't see him making it through this, because while we have seen an uptick in form from Tel, Orchi and Dustin did speak about the same topics, with Tel and Orcun and Renocolo Moani and Odebert. They're all combining very well. Xavi, I thought, had a nice game. So there is some nice bits of play, but again, I don't think there really is much there either today or across the last couple of league matches. I mean, we have 2 wins in the last 12 league matches. I mean, that is absolutely unacceptable, regardless of the conditions around it. I mean, we were all screaming for Ange to get out last year about this, about when he was in the middle of an injury crisis. I understand that Thomas Frank is in an injury crisis as well, but a lot of it is his own doing, because I don't think there was proper rotation in the beginning of the year. Now, maybe that comes from his unfamiliarity with, managing European squads and everything like that, but I just don't see enough. Like, I don't see him being able to kind of coach those attacking patterns of play, because if you really look at what he did at Brentford or at any point, you never really see this this domination, this attacking, overwhelming plan. It's more of to negate the opposition and to kind of attack them at their weakest points, as opposed to, we have an attacking plan, you guys have to plan for us. And I don't think that he is able to adapt. And most coaches are not able to adapt. Most coaches are a certain way. They're either a defensive specialist, a Mourinho, a Conte, someone like that. But then there's the attacking coaches who just, that's what they do. But you can't, at the end of the day, it's very difficult to kind of support a manager who clearly has this way of playing football which doesn't align with the football club. And again, I don't know how the board is missing this glaring warning sign, like right when they were flirting with this man. And even I was interested in what he could do, because I thought his tactical nuance and his ability to switch between systems would lead to some new doors opening in our attack and kind of an unpredictability. But we've seen this almost stubbornness from him, and it's like I'm not seeing a path forward where he makes it as our manager, because I just don't see that he can. And that's not a knock against the man. The man might be a great tactician in other areas, but in the attacking sense, with these players, with what we're trying to do, I mean, it's very unclear, and I don't see a path forward with him. It's hard to say, because it's really hard to come to grips with that, because we're only 7 to 8 months into this, And you want to scream about time, you want to scream about patience. Managers deserve time, managers deserve patience, but you typically see something at this point, like some kind of fingerprint that this is how we're trying to attack teams. When Villa attacks, you could clearly see how they're trying to. It's a very slow buildup of play, and then a 1, 2, 3 quick passes. We're in on your goal. They did that numerous times. Their first goal was like that. They had a point in the second half at around the 72nd minute where almost the same thing happened down our right. Down our left side, their right side, and if it wasn't for, I believe, just some mix up in our box, they would have been 3-1 up.
I
But
think Poro did a goal line clearance for that.
yeah, exactly. So we saw how they want to attack. You see how they're trying to get to goal. The way that we're trying to get to goal is to nick a corner or nick a throw in and take 30 to 40 seconds to set this up, and it comes to nothing. And this is where I'm losing my mind, and this is kind of where it forces me to really think about, what do I want to do? Do I really want to put up with this nonsense? Because I see 40 seconds to take a throw in, and what happens to it? Goalkeeper catches it. I see 45 seconds for a setup for a free kick. What happens? They play it out wide, and it turns into nothing, and it goes out for a throw in, which turns into another 40 seconds of wasted time. This is not what Spurs are. This is not what Tottenham Hotspur stands for. Bill Nick he's rolling around in his grave. Like, all these people are losing their minds, and it's very difficult to support this and to see anything positive of what we're doing right now. So yeah, there's no real way forward, I think, with this man, because I don't think it's possible for him to really adapt to playing a more attacking and open style.
Dustin, before I come to you, just want to read this from Thomas Frank in the press conference just now, talking about the game and the result. He said, "It's disappointing. We all hurt. There's nothing we wanted more than to go through to the next round of the FA Cup. We played at home. We had a good opportunity. We went with full strength team. We will look back at the game, and there are things we can do better, and a second half where we did well." Dustin, before I do come to you, let's go through the starting 11 today. Vicario, Poro, Danso, Van der Ven, Davis, Gray, Polinia, Odebert, Simmons, Tell and Richarlison. Now, among the subs today, a very, very smiley Dominic Solanke walking into the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium before the game, before the team lineup actually was published. And of course, Destiny Udogie was also on the bench. Solanke got some minutes today. A real positive for Tottenham, because Thomas Frank and this Spurs team have really missed him in that final third. What positives do you take from today? And let me ask you as well, Dustin, that the fact that you break down tactically everything that Thomas Frank does, and you've done it all season. Some fantastic videos you produced for this channel in the last couple of months. Do you see it working under Thomas Frank from what you've seen? And if not, what is the answer? Is it the fact that the board need to deliver players for Thomas Frank for this to work, or is it another managerial change?
So I'll talk about positives I take from the game. The pre-match singing by the crowd was incredible. I don't know whether it was because of the memorial to Martin Shivers and Yorath, but essentially, if you want the fans to come and support the team, they showed up in spades. And that is what we saw. So the positive I take is that the fans are keeping up our side of the bargain, and it's up for the club to do the same, and the players as well, and to show the fight on the pitch, not after the game's over. So I would say that the positives I take are, you saw in the second half that the players were fighting, but players can only fight to within a certain limit of the confines of the system that they're playing in. And that's where I see the tension between what I think Frank wants to play, and maybe you might feel that I'm nitpicking here and I'm attributing negative things to Frank Ball and then positive things to the players going off script. I would never know. I'm not in the dressing room. But I see from patterns of play, when Frank has his full team, how does he like to play? He likes to hit long balls, vertical balls, basically what I observed was Porro to Kudus. The other is if Muani is playing on the left, then Van de Ven will hit raking balls down to Muani. Or the other theme is Spence carries. These are the three main themes I see. Everything else that happens through the center, if it's part of the plan, it's a plan that doesn't carry out frequently enough for me to say that's a pattern. The patterns I see are those four patterns. Porro to Kudus, left back or left centre back, long diagonal, not diagonal, but long ball down to whoever's playing on the left wing, and then Spence carrying out as the left-sided left back, right? So, and then long throws and set pieces. Set pieces, far post to Romero who hits back. Those are the patterns I see. So you can't tell me that I'm attributing only the bad things to it, because the set pieces work really well. Romero always gets free, he always hits it back, it's very dangerous, right? But we can't just rely on set pieces. We can't just rely on long balls to Kudus. So when we play centrally and create chances, I've seen that happen before, because I've seen Bergvall have interplay of Archie Gray. I've seen one-touch passes between Xavi and the rest, and they create from that, and there's threat there. But the threat doesn't seem to be something that is systemic. It doesn't look like something that they seek to create. It doesn't look like when we have possession of the ball and the team is against a team that has like two banks of four and they're locking in. I don't see how we unlock them through the center. I just see we go to the flank, we cross it into a pack box. Even the chances created, there were some chances that were from the flank going in, but instead of going into the box, it went in slightly further back in front of the box, and that's where we got the space from, like, for Odebear and Tell to have shots from outside the box. So that's where we also create chances, and it's not on script, or it's not what I frequently see. What I frequently see is deep cross from Porro, cut back from Kudus, Muani on the wing, one touch back, and then see what happens from there.
Orcun, let's go.
Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna just touch on what Dustin said, and yes, that's true. And also, you add to that, the players themselves haven't been good enough. Like what you just mentioned, Porro. I can't remember the last time the guy actually got a cross into the box. Like if he tries 10 times, maybe he gets one in. So I've got it. Like yes, we can criticize Thomas Frank for hours, and a lot of the points are valid, but also I just got a feeling that again the players themselves haven't been good enough either. Like even tonight, the first goal just completely Porro, Danso, and even Archie Gray was there just watching the ball. The player take the strike and score. There's been a lot of poor performances, which again you can probably put on the doorstep of Thomas Frank, because at the end of the day, he's the manager. Thomas Frank and the coaches should be, working on those things. There's a lot of things that, like, I can't remember the last time we scored a goal from a free kick, for example. Like, there's so many things that are missing in our performances, which is what's, I think, all the fans are just sick of now. It just, because each season we just seem to go even more backwards and even more backwards. But anyway, so what were you going to ask, Chris?
Orcun, I was going to come to you on João Palhinha. He had the most touches of the ball today in the game, 66. He was everywhere. His heat map, he was everywhere across the pitch. What did you make of his performance? And would you like to see Spurs sign him on a permanent deal in the summer?
Yeah, I think, again, today, he probably gave the, one of his better performances in recent times. I think, we've criticized him in recent games, but definitely today it seemed like, again, in the first half, he wasn't quite there, but he seemed to really come on after like towards the end of the first half, and definitely throughout the second half, he was just immense. I think there's definitely a good player in there. And I think obviously the incident that happened at the end of the last game where, he went over and he was trying to, calm things down with the whole, Porro and Van de Ven, obviously arguing with fans. I think he's clearly, he definitely, had a point to prove today. And he seemed to be out there, yes, doing his best. And he kind of had similar performances at the start of the season. But as I was saying, in recent games, he kind of gone off the boil. And that might be because, a lot of the recent games when Bentancur was fit, it seemed like Frank was, he was starting Bentancur and then bringing Paulinho on as a kind of cover for him. It was either, Bentancur or Paulinho. So I think maybe that might have been the reason why his performances hadn't been good, but certainly he's really got a chance now. And I think yes, I think in terms of today is an example of what he can do, and what he needs to do is do that consistently. And if he does, I think we need a player like that. We've needed a player. The Paulinho that we saw today, and especially in the second half, is the kind of player that we need to really get in there, make tackles, be aggressive, And I mean, one thing is slightly maybe off topic is actually something that I noticed again in several games. We become really clumsy as well. And also, I think sometimes refs' decisions have been a bit shocking. But I've noticed, like, whenever the opposition team, they come and foul our players, and we never seem to get the fouls. But we really clumsily keep going into, we make it really easy for referees to give the fouls. We're giving a lot of fouls away, even when there isn't any fouls. So again, that's something that I think we need to get smarter about. I mean, we seem to have gotten really clumsy at, we need to be smarter, because a lot of the opposition players seem to do that to us. So certainly, there was a few situations today where Villa players were the same. It's like every time one of our players went very near to them, they were kind of falling over, or they were clever in getting the decision. Whereas every time, one of their players came to us, tried to tackle some of our players, and we just, we weren't getting the decisions. So I think that's an area that we need to be better. But yes, I think if Paulinho can be consistent with these kind of performances, definitely, I think we should definitely sign him up.
Can I make a statement about João Paulinho having the most amount of touches? Like, if that is the stat that you're carrying, then your attack is fundamentally broken. There is no way that a player such as Paulinho, who plays a specific role in any team as a destroyer, should have the most amount of touches when he's on the same pitch as players such as Xavi, Odegaard, Tell, Gray, Poro. There is no way that that should be how it is, like, as an attack. That clearly shows that we have major concerns. And this is not because of our injuries. This is because of the system. You cannot have a system where your defensive destroyer is having the most amount of touches. I'm sorry. I just could not deal with that stat and stay quiet. I'm sorry.
A good in possession team has Xavi with the most passes.
Yeah, agreed, Dustin. Yeah, Matt, let's come to you, because let's talk about one positive moment in the 54th minute. And I might add that we did have a goal, in the first half and the second half, disallowed. The offside flag went up both times. Odegaard scored Tottenham's goal in the 54th minute, assisted by Randall Cowlin. Do you want to talk us through the goal? What did you make of it?
Yeah, I actually thought it was a nice goal, but again, it came from, I think the players going off script. Randall Muani won a ball in midfield. I think there was a loose pass from the Aston Villa back line, and he was able to use his physical strength to really kind of get in the way and make a nuisance of himself, win that ball, take a couple of strides in, and then Odegaard was making a really intelligent run off the right side, staying right on side, and bam, Rondel Colomone plays a perfect ball into him. Odegaard opens up his body, left foot into the corner. That's a beautiful goal. It was really nice for Randall Colomone to lift his head up and see that pass instead of just running head down, because when he won the ball and took a few strides in, I really kind of, his head was a little bit down, so I was concerned that he might just go for glory and try to whack one into the top corner. But it seems like he put his head up at the right time, hit that nice through ball, weighted perfectly right to Odegaard on the right side, and he made a great finish with it. And right after that, it seemed like we were really up for it. You know, the team all of a sudden was pushing and pressing, and the crowd was up for it. And for like a couple of minutes, like maybe 10 for 15 minutes, it looked like we might be able to get something to it. And for that individual piece of like play, I thought that was a great bit of play. But again, it doesn't really show like an attacking pattern. It shows a one player winning possession because of the opposition having a loose touch or a loose pass, and then using using his physical attributes, his strength, his intelligence, his speed to create the space to get to Odebert on the right side. And I like to see Odebert do well. I think he's done very well since his substitute appearance about a few weeks back. I think since then he's progressed forward, as well as Tell and RKM. I think they're combining very well. I think we could get something good out of that. So it was nice to see that bit of play. I'll be honest about that. But again, I'm not trying to be so negative about this, but again, there was not a pattern of play like Aston Villa's goals. Aston Villa's goals, you could clearly see that was worked on in the training ground. The little touches, the back heels, the little flicks on and everything. This was just an intelligent player using his physical attributes, playing it to making a really nice through ball to another player, making a really intelligent run, and using his skill set to finish in the corner. So that's great to see. It's a nice goal overall, aesthetically pleasing, but it's a shame nothing else came from it, because I thought for like a few minutes we could actually get something from it and maybe get the second one and turn it into a real better match. But then Villa took control. They kind of like made some subs. They kind of wrestled the control back, slowed it down a bit, and then created that chance in the 72nd minute. And then they just ground out the game like a really good team should. And we have to take our hats off and realize that Villa is a much better team than us. There is no right that we had to win this game, because Villa are a better team. They have a better manager. They have better cohesion. They've been together longer. They are on incredible form. Like, for us to have tried to at least make a match of it in the second half, that comes down to like the players pushing and pressing. But it's tough. It's tough right now. It's tough to be a Spurs fan right now. But yeah, for that, like, that goal was really nice. It was a nice little bit of play. So I will take my hats off for that.
Also, just want to add to that, like Colomboani, although it was ruled off for offside, I thought, he took that, he showed a lot of composure, which is what I was getting at earlier. I certainly have always felt, because he's always played Colomboani when he did start him, he's always either used them on the right or on the left, which again, he's done all right. But I always felt that his prime position has always been in center, where he always starts Richarlison. And if he gets good service like he was getting from Xavi today, I think there's a good threat there, to be honest. So that's one little piece of, potential positivity that hopefully we might see in the coming weeks. I don't know, but
yeah,
we certainly need some new players, though. Boy, is our squad down to bare bones.
Yeah, Kolo Muani through the middle. I mean, that's how he got his name at Frankfurt, like playing there. And then when he went to PSG, he was pushed off to the left. And then, everyone thinks that he's this winger. He is a striker. He has the physical attributes to play up top alone and combine well. So yeah, I agree with what Orcun's saying right there.
Dustin, let's come to you. Thomas Frank has just said first half was not good, especially after that goal. We can't concede the second one. That would have kept us more in the game for the second half, but the second half was full of energy. The cooperation and unity with the fans was brilliant. They were very good. Now, lastly, I just wanted to give each one of you the opportunity to talk about anything that we haven't discussed so far from today's game, performance and results. And also, we have games coming thick and fast. There are another 4 games left in January. West Ham United at home next week in the Premier League, then Dortmund at home in the Champions League, Burnley away in the Premier League, and then Frankfurt away in the Champions League. And then going into Feb, it is a very busy Feb. Very, very tough games. At home to Manchester City, away to Manchester United, at home to Newcastle, and then at home to Arsenal. Dustin, how do you see these fixtures panning out in terms of results, and anything else that we haven't discussed from today's game from you?
our injury list is horrific, right? We lost another player today. We lost our top scorer of the season today, right? So, I really want to know what's happening in our medical department. I mean, there's some things that you can't really, like, some things just happen during the games, but this is 3 seasons in a row. We've got the longest injury list in the Premier League 3 seasons in a row. And maybe it's a case of, the schedule is getting a lot harder. It's a World Cup year. They're adding, new tournaments here and there. Other teams have gotten long injury lists too, but we are consistent. Like, that is one table we're always at the top of, injuries. And I have no idea why. So, we're going to need reinforcements. We already had, and to be fair to Frank, right? We've had most of our creative midfielders or best creative midfielders out for most of the season, which is why when we were in the summer window, we needed to buy a lot more. We only got Xavi, but we were going for Morgan Gibbs-White. We didn't get that. We knew Maddison and Kulusevski were out, so we needed cover for those positions. We didn't really get them, and now we need for sure a left back, for sure maybe a left wing. Even though we have lots of central midfielders, we don't have the right combination. So one of the things that we have about all of these players that we have, Paulinho is a great player as a destroyer. But when you have a player that's so maxed out on the destroying stat and not so much on the creative stat, you need to combine Paulinho with midfielders that can do a bunch of things, creative and defensive. Right now, we have lots of single-purpose tools. We don't have enough multi-tools. So when we put Paulinho in there, we are very limited in who we can combine so that we have a midfield that can do enough central ball progression and can also put in enough of a defensive shift so we're not overrun. The problem with that is that we have a lot of midfielders that don't have that fit. So it sounds crazy that we need more midfielders, but we need more central midfielders. We need central midfield passers. But we're not linked to central midfield passers because I don't think it's Frank's priority. We're linked with, box-to-box midfielders and DMs, like Sangare, like, Stankovic, like Conor Gallagher. None of these are creative midfield passers. So even if you said that we're going to get reinforcements, we're not prioritizing what I think is a problem, but I don't think Frank thinks that's the problem. I don't think he thinks central ball progression is a problem to solve. I think he's happy doing the flank thing. So even if we do get reinforcements, if we get reinforcements that, in my opinion, don't fix the main problem, being bottom of the league with 11 through balls out of over half a season, then I don't see what the window can solve if we are pointing our signing gun at the wrong target.
Orcun, same questions to you.
Yeah, kind of following from what Dustin has said, I agree that I think, that could be one of the, I'm not making excuses for Thomas Frank, but because, from pretty much start of the season, Kulusevski, Maddison, these were, big injuries to have out. So maybe that's been one of the reasons why, Thomas Frank is trying to utilize the wings, because we were, until recently, we had Johnson, we had Odebear, we seem to have more wingers than, we had, in cover when you compare to anywhere else on the field. But look, kind of coming away from it, look, even if we got rid of Thomas Frank and we brought somebody else in, I don't know who would be available at this time of the year. But yeah, an interim manager, whoever it is, I think the whole thing just comes back to the board again. I think we can all agree that we definitely need some reinforcements. And here we are entering, we're practically 2 weeks into the transfer window. And we've got one, okay, fair enough. He's supposedly a very promising 19-year-old Brazilian left back. And he might be brilliant, great, but do we need just one player? Like, I would have liked to have seen, as we've all said, players like Kulusevski, Maddison. A number of these players have been out for pretty much most of the season so far. So this board knew that we were already understaffed in the first team, and I would have thought in the last, at least, let's say since November, they would have got to work, sounding out what players were available, what players, so that as soon as the window opened, we were fast and furious with at least bringing in 2, 3, 4, reinforcements to really take this team forward. And here we are, we haven't even completed this, one signing that, people are talking about. So, I think we are at a stage now where, they gave some really nice interviews at the start of the season. But I want to see them put their money where their mouth is. This board, the new hierarchy really have to come out now and get in there and buy some players, and buy some decent quality players that are going to enhance the squad, because at the moment we're down to bare bones. And so, whoever it is, whether it's Thomas Frank or another manager, we need help. We need to strengthen the team, and that's something that we have to bring in decent players. And as the financial experts have said, Spurs have got a lot of headroom in as far as what they can pay in salaries, what they can pay in terms of transfer fees, without falling foul of financial fair play rules, or the rules, whatever they might be. And so, yes, it's as we again, another cliche, actions speak louder than words. I don't want and also it's another thing as well. Like, obviously the club are going through a really difficult period right now. And I would have expected somebody, whether it's Vinkatesan or whatever his name is, or Lange or whoever it is, somebody to come out and say, look, okay, guys, we know we're going through a bit of a tough period. We've got a number of injuries. Yes, the squad is challenged, but listen, we're working on it, and we're planning. Like, we've got, obviously we're not expecting them to reveal their list of players that they're going for, but at least reassure the fans that they're working on, we will be bringing some players in. Just, have patience, give us another week or 2 weeks, or by the end of the window, we're anticipating at least, 2, 3, signings or whatever it might be. But the silence is deafening. So, I want to see, whether you're Thomas Frank in or out, even if as I've seen in the comments, like, even if we brought in Pep Guardiola, he would struggle in this club right now, the way we operate and the way we've operated for a number of years. We're led to believe, obviously, Levy got sent packing. We've got a new hierarchy. We've got a new management team who supposedly are, determined to have Tottenham fighting on all fronts. Well, if that's the case, then show us you mean business. Show us that you mean it, or it's just words. It's just empty words. And this, fan base has had enough. We've suffered enough. Even in peak Poch seasons, a manager like Poch, who absolutely, yes, we didn't win anything, but the football that he had us playing, getting us into a Champions League final, he had us at least fighting for the Premier League for a couple of seasons. A manager like that wasn't backed. So even there, so a lot of my frustrations are mainly with the board, because, they just haven't been good enough. They haven't supported managers. Yes, they spend money, but they buy 1 or 2 players, proven players, when we need probably 5 or 6. So either go in, do what you need to do, or sell the club to somebody who will spend the money, who will go out there and spend 300-400 million pounds in a transfer window and bring in all the players that we need. So we've got at least, like, for majority of the positions, we've got 2 world-class options, which was always, I remember going back to Poch's, that was always his aim as well, to have 2 really good players in each position, so that even whether he had to rotate or whether players got injured, the player that was coming in was always the level, the quality, the standards were not falling below what he had tried to establish. So yeah, I think for me it's more about the board. They've got to go out the next couple of weeks. I want to see some good, decent signings. Signings that are proven, not just some kids, promising kids. I want to see us go out there and spend the money, whatever it takes. If we have to pay 60 million for a 50 million pound player, I don't care. We need those players. We need the proven quality. We need this squad to be better, and that's what they've got to do. They've got to show that they mean business. Otherwise, just start go to the Qataris, go to whoever, and just sell to a consortium or whoever it might be that is going to spend money, that is going to take this team forward, club forward.
Now, Thomas Frank has just confirmed. He said, yes, it looks like a hamstring injury. This is talking about Richarlison. He said, we don't know as yet. It's a bigger question for the football authorities. We've had a very tight schedule with 5 games in 13 days, 4 in 10 days for the first time this season. That is something we need to look into. 2 days off in between games is very short turnaround. It's not just us. There are a lot of clubs who are dealing with the same situation. Matt, let's give you the final opportunity to talk about anything else that we haven't discussed today. And surely we're going to beat West Ham next week, right?
Hopefully. I mean, who knows with this Tottenham side? We don't know what's going to show up, what's going to happen. I mean, it just seems like when it rains, it pours with us. Just when it goes bad, you have all these little silly things. When in a vacuum, they're not a big thing, like Thomas Frank at Bournemouth with the little Arsenal Cup. I want to really just touch on that real quick. I mean, for a man who claims to be so detail oriented, how do you miss that? I find that it kind of pokes holes in a lot of what he talks about, but kind of echoing a lot of what everyone has said is like, we hear nothing from the board. In the summer, it was rah, rah, we want to win the league. We want to win these things. We want to do this. Now it's been silence, and it's tough. I kind of feel for Frank in that aspect, that he gets a lot of questions that he probably should not take. In a lot of the other European countries, they have different models where like the sporting director or the owner would speak about what's their transfer plans or answer questions, but we don't have any type of visibility or clarity what the board wants to do. And Ange spoke about this, I think, when he was first appointed, about how we need to go into this succession planning. Like, we need to realize that it's more than just a one manager thing. Like, but we need that clarity from the board. We need the board to say, hey, we are going to go back to the way that we were successful in the earlier years, about 15 years back, where we would buy young English talent and develop it. And that's how we would become something. Or we're going to go this other route where we're going to buy big name players and try to do that. But, this lack of communication from the board is very frustrating for us. I'm sure it's very frustrating for the players, for any prospective players who are coming here. So it's very difficult for like almost everybody involved with the actual Spurs club. But again, like, it all starts at the board level. Like, they have to kind of tell us what they are trying to do from the top down, and from there that leadership comes, and then we'll know what we're looking for. Are we trying to do this? Like, are we going to back Frank? Are we going to buy younger players that are attacking players? Are we going to go back to the ethos of this club, which is to entertain? How are we going to buy some young players to attack and go into that route? It has to be clear, and we haven't had that recently, and there's just so many questions. Like, how do we progress forward? Like, not just right now, like, what about 6 months? What about a year? What about 2 years, 3, 4, 5? We need to see this plan, and we're not getting that type of clarity. And when there's not that type of clarity, we all assume the worst. I mean, it's human nature to assume the worst when things are going wrong and your bosses aren't talking to you. And like, I've been at places where like, you see people running around, but you're not hearing anything. Something bad is going on, but you don't know what you could do to get out of it. You don't know what's expected of you. It's very frustrating. Like, are they going to invest like they said? Are they going to bring in like big players? Are they going to address the major needs, which are a creative midfielder from deep? We're not going to sign Adam Wharton. That boat has sailed. We're not going to sign big name players. Let's look for a young, creative midfielder who's got a little bit of bite in them and could grow through the team. Let's look for those players. We need more left-sided players. We need a right-sided player now. with Richarlison out, like, what are we going to do? Does Scarlett now become more in the rotation? Does Tell play up top? What about RKM? Like, is he going to play up top? The rotation then again comes into play. I know Thomas Frank is talking about this games every 3 days, but he knew about this when he was signing on to become Spurs manager. He knew that the Champions League was coming. He knew that there were going to be obligations every 3 days, and it was going to be very difficult to implement his ideas. But even if he had that time, and we saw in those weeks when he was given time to implement an idea with a full week of training, we didn't see anything good. We saw a loss to Liverpool and a 1-0 win to Crystal Palace, if I'm not mistaken. Like, that's not what I want to see. Like, if a manager has that much time on the training pitch. So I mean, there's just so many questions, and because we're not getting that clarity, it is very difficult for us to see a path forward. I mean, tactically, there's 1,000 questions. Why do we drop so deep? Like, why is our striker always at the edge of our own box? Why do we allow long shots? Why do we not close enough players down? Why are we always static with defending, so Villa could rip us through? I mean, there's so many questions. And again, we're not getting answers from the manager, the players, or the board. So it's a complete mess, like from top to bottom. And it's very frustrating for us as the fans. It's frustrating for you, Chris, as a reporter for the club. It's just frustrating. And right now, everyone is dunking on us. Like, every single fan base is just constantly dunking on us. And to be honest, like, I kind of wish sometimes I could see it from another perspective so I could laugh about how much of a mess we're in. But when you're in it, it really hurts. Like, you internalize it and you're just like, this is painful almost. Like, watching them almost hurts inside. Like, you're like, how did this club like come to this? How did we become like a worse Brentford? And Brentford is now above us by some point, by a large amount of points, when they appointed their set piece coach, who everyone was odds on favorites to go down this year. Now we're probably going to be odds on favorites to go down next year if this continues, because we don't see any plan. We don't see how we can really progress out of this. And I'm not saying immediate changes, but we really need clarity, and we're not getting that. So it's very frustrating. I mean, it's good that we have a lot of young players, and it's starting to see some development with them, but we're also seeing too many injuries. We're seeing poor rotation, poor tactics. Just it's very difficult to see the path out of this, Chris.
And Brentford lost they didn't just lose their manager as well. They lost some of their best players like Mbuemo, Wisa, so, and look where they are, even because they seem to, which is kind of what I was getting at in a previous stream. Again, maybe it's a bad comparison, but I was watching. There's a really fantastic on Disney Plus I watched about a few weeks ago about Barcelona. There is pass the ball, hold the ball, or something. It is fantastic. I recommend all of you watch it.
Take the ball, pass the ball.
Yes, it's all about how they have this system, the way Barcelona play, and it's literally from the youth team all the way through to the main team. And they've had some world-class, transfers that didn't work out because those players couldn't adapt to the way, they specifically pick players that are great at the way that whole Johan Cruyff style of gameplay, which is also who Pep Guardiola was a student of. And they even talk about when Pep Guardiola was picked ahead of Jose Mourinho, which was quite a decision, quite a controversial decision. But they went with Pep Guardiola because he was already managing the youth team in exactly that same way of playing. And it just makes a lot of sense. It's just, and I think that's the kind of thing that maybe we need to, going forward, create at the club, so that there is, because there is that whole Spurs, Tottenham, that classic Tottenham way of playing. And like you said earlier, Matt, we're supposed to be playing this entertaining football that unfortunately probably since peak Poch team, we haven't really seen. It just seems to have gone backwards and backs because we've lost players we've never replaced. Eriksen, whether you talk about Eriksen, whether you talk about a number of players, Moussa Dembele, Eriksen's, obviously Harry Kane's and, Sonny, even though in his probably last season he wasn't the Sonny of old. Still, we used to have like at least 3, 4, 5 world-class players that would get into potentially every single, or most Premier League teams, they would walk into their squad, they would walk into their starting 11. Whereas you look at our team now, again, it comes back to my point about the squad. You look at our squad now, and how many, maybe Van der Ven would probably get into most teams. Even Romero has been sus, I would say, this season, or at least in the last, month or so. So, who do we have now that, would get into? It's just we've replaced all of these players with promising young players. We don't seem to, so I think that's a lot of our problems come from. And as I said, this board really needs to put their hand in their pocket and do some business in the next couple of weeks, strengthen this squad, and then we can talk about whether we get rid of Thomas Frank soon or at the end of the season. I don't know, but if we got rid of Thomas Frank, who would we go for? Yes, probably an interim manager until the summer.
Ben Davies for player coach. Ben Davies for player coach, baby.
All three of you. Oh, go on, Dustin.
Sorry. Actually, one thing about Barcelona is that, one thing that is the most interesting about the system, they have to elect their presidents. So their presidents can get voted out if they perform badly. Our board is never getting voted out. So I think that's the key thing behind accountability. That's what happens in the German clubs as well. So it's about where the power lies and whether there is the concept of accountability. If we were a Serie A team, the ultras would be on the field now, threatening their players physically to their faces, right?
That's what happens in Italy. That's what happens in Italy all the time. Or players have to stand in front of the fans and basically take abuse because they're not playing well. That's how it is. But yeah, we got to see something from this board. It's crazy.
All three of you have been fantastic guests. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Dustin, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. Yep. And if anyone wants to, those slides are part of a thing I'll be doing for Talking Tottenham Tactics, which is on this channel. So look out for that.
Brilliant work indeed as well. Thank you, Dustin. Orcun, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me, Chris. And commiserations to you, man. Like, you have to go out there, you have to go there, you go to every single game, mate, and you kind of have to be in the stands, have to put up with this stuff. So totally it's just, I mean, we're at home commenting, but you have to go through it. So I totally understand how dejected you must feel. But I'm like I said, I'm going to try to see if I can come to the West Ham game. I don't know if I can swing it. I'm going to try to come over to London midweek and
in 5 minutes. Well, we might see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us, Orcun. And I think anyone who has watched this or listened to this has probably noticed that I've had very little input in this podcast because I feel absolutely drained, if I'm completely honest. And I'm glad that there is a week now before the next game. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem, Chris. It's a pleasure being with you guys. And yeah, Chris, you went through the ringer already today watching that. So you know what? We'll take it. We got it from here.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everyone. And we will see you again very soon. Try to have a good week and come on, you Spurs.
We'll be right back.